What if I told you that inside your chest, there's this incredible biological engine running nonstop, with 4 critical gates that control your every single heartbeat? Today, we're going to dive into the human heart, because it's a true marvel of engineering, and not all its parts are created equal.
So, here they are. Meet the 4 gatekeepers of the heart. On the right side, you've got the tricuspid and pulmonary valves, and over on the left, the mitral and the aortic. At a glance, it seems like they're all doing pretty much the same job, right? But here's the fascinating part. They're operating in completely different worlds.
And that brings us to the big mystery we're tackling today. Why is it that when something goes acutely wrong with the mitral or the aortic valves, the situation can turn catastrophic in literally minutes, while problems with the right-sided valves often develop much, much more slowly? What makes that left side so incredibly dangerous?
Well, the answer, really, it all comes down to one word: pressure. The whole secret is hidden in the wildly different environments these valves are forced to work in. It's truly a tale of 2 systems, one that's pretty calm and another that is just chaotic, all living under the same roof.
Okay, let's start with the left side. To push oxygen-rich blood to every single part of your body, we're talking from your brain all the way down to your toes, the left ventricle has to generate this immensely powerful squeeze. The force it generates is somewhere around 120 to 140 millimeters of mercury. Just think about that. That is a huge amount of pressure.
Now hold that number in your head and compare it to the right side. The right ventricle? It only has to send blood right next door, to the lungs. It gets its job done with a much, much gentler pressure. We're talking only 20 to 30 millimeters of mercury. The system is running on like 4 to 6 times less power.
So, the most important takeaway is this simple rule right here. The left side of the heart is a high-pressure system. And when things break in a high-pressure system, they don't just spring a leak, they explode. The failure is sudden, it's unstable, and it's immediately life-threatening.
And this is what that explosion actually looks like in the body. When one of those high-pressure valves fails, the consequences are instantaneous. The lungs can fill up with fluid in minutes. That's what we call flash pulmonary edema. At the exact same time, blood pressure can just totally crash because the heart can't pump forward anymore. That's cardiogenic shock. The entire system just collapses, and it happens in the blink of an eye.
But here's the thing, it's not just about the insane pressure they have to put up with. It's also about the absolutely critical job they do. These aren't just any old gates. They are the master controls for the entire body's blood flow.
See, the aortic and mitral valves are the ultimate gatekeepers. The aortic valve is the final door out. Literally, all the oxygenated blood leaving the heart to supply your brain, your kidneys, everything, has to go through it. The mitral valve, on the other hand, controls how much blood fills up that powerful left ventricle, and more importantly, it stops that high-pressure blood from blasting backward into the lungs.
So just imagine for a second that final door, the aortic valve, suddenly breaks and starts leaking backward. The blood that was just pumped out comes rushing right back in. This kicks off a devastating chain reaction. The ventricle instantly overfills, which causes pressure to just skyrocket backward into the delicate lungs. And because less blood is moving forward, the entire body is suddenly starved of oxygen, and blood pressure just plummets.
And a mitral valve failure? It's just as dramatic. Now the full, raw power of the heart's strongest chamber gets blasted backward, straight into the lungs. This pressure wave is so intense, it causes the lungs to flood almost instantly. There's that flash pulmonary edema again. And because the ventricle can't fill up properly for the next beat, the whole system just goes into shock.
So far, we've mostly talked about these sudden, acute failures. But these valves also have a much higher risk day job. They have to endure this constant extreme stress that makes them way more vulnerable to long-term damage over time.
The best way to think about it is like an engine that's being redlined 24/7. The sheer force and incredible speed of the blood rushing across the mitral and aortic valves causes this continuous, microscopic damage to their lining. It's a level of wear and tear that the right-sided valves they never even come close to experiencing.
And all that relentless stress just makes them fragile. The valve leaflets can get stiff and crunchy with calcium, kind of like rust on a hinge. They can wear out and become floppy, or they can become a perfect breeding ground for bacteria, which leads to a really dangerous infection called endocarditis. Even the tiny little strings that hold the valve in place are under so much strain that they can just snap.
And this vulnerability gets even worse when you factor in how other heart problems, especially something like a heart attack, can disproportionately damage the machinery that supports these critical left-sided valves.
So, a heart attack, an MI, is basically when a part of the heart muscle dies because its blood supply gets blocked. Now, if that blockage happens to kill the specific muscle supporting the mitral valve, we're talking about the papillary muscles or the chordae that act like parachute strings, that support structure can be instantly destroyed, causing the valve to fail catastrophically.
And here is the final crucial piece of the puzzle. Think of the heart's upper chambers like balloons. The right atrium is pretty stretchy, like a party balloon. It can handle some extra volume, which buys the body time to adapt. But the left atrium, it's more like a water balloon. It's stiff, it's not designed to stretch much at all. So when it gets slammed with sudden backflow, the pressure spikes instantly, and there's absolutely nowhere for that pressure to go except straight back into the lungs. There's no safety buffer, none.
So, okay, let's bring it all together now. We've got pressure, we've got control, we've got all that wear and tear, and we've got compliance, or the lack of it. All of these factors combine to explain the critical life-or-death difference between the left and right sides of the heart.
The bottom line is this. It's not just one thing. It's the absolute perfect storm of incredibly high pressure combined with the critical job of controlling blood flow to the entire body. And in this high-stakes environment, even the smallest, most minor failure can trigger an instant, system-wide, and devastating collapse.
So, the takeaway here is pretty clear. The left-sided valves are basically living life in the fast lane, which makes them both unbelievably important and dangerously fragile. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? As our medical understanding and our technology get better and better, what new strategies might we come up with to protect these high-stress, high-stakes parts of our amazing cardiac engine?